Welcome to an artist's life. I live by the sea in New England, and I love to share my quiet, simple life of art and garden and home. So I hope you will feel that you can come and join me. Welcome to an artist's life. Good day, everyone. The week started out actually rather warm. The snow and ice had gone, and I was able to watch my morning commute of the geese and ducks across rather green grass. And then the next day, the promised snow began. And though we were promised up to 8 inches, I wasn't sure, because often the weathermen are a bit more optimistic. But I figured I'd go and look for algae, because the previous day, Algae, or Algernon Ziegel, was on his flat rock enjoying his bivalve breakfast. Unaware that the snow was coming, on the warm, almost spring-like day, he was having a delicious mollusk and enjoying the warmth. And now today, the snow has come, and his little eating spot is white and downy, and it's getting cold, and the snow is beginning to pile up. So let's go have a little look outside. I love a heavy, quick snow like this. It falls and accumulates so quickly. It was just under an hour from the time I showed you the first flakes falling, and here we are in our front garden looking out over to our wood, and you can see how all the various trees and shrubs are just painted in the snow. The old forsythia under the weight. Each piece painted in white. And you can see off into the wood. And this funny old smoke bush, I love this old tree. It's very, very old, and we had to cut a big section off to make a funny shape, but it looks beautiful in the summer, and now in the tracery of white, it's lovely. And the soft sound, and you could just hear the sea in the background. And there's just the peak of part of the boathouse, and my little wooden-walled vegetable garden, and beyond the sea. And as we make our way back to the front, seaside, we can see how much it's falling. And down below is the pathway to the boathouse, and below that, our rocky, sandy shore, now white with snow, and the spitting rock, with its split down the center, all but completely covered. And back to where we started our little walk, almost moments ago. The little Cupid statue and the old buoy I found on the shore on a beachcombing morning, now almost completely covered in snow. And it went on like this for the rest of the day, falling and gray. And the next morning, the snow had stopped, and the sky was clear, but the air was cold and chilly, and the snow still blanketed the ground. But it is my day for marketing and for going to get water in the village. So let's hop into the car and go into the village and get some water. I love this spot. I shared it once in late summer, so it looked quite different. But this ancient spring, the water comes out here, and I get water weekly for us. And the old gristmill, the wheel's still not turning, though now it's not turning because it's winter. And the pond in the back, and snow covering everything. And here I went to wipe off to show you the sign showing how we're twinned with Sandwich, Kent, but it wasn't snow, it was ice, and I couldn't clear it off. And looking down towards the village, past the church, and back towards the tea house, Dunbar in the distance, which I love, and then down to the herring run. The water was so beautiful and crisp that day. You can just hear the music of it. And over to where I shared the Phragmites walk in the summer, which have now quite died down. So let's take a drive through the village. But first, the beauty of the water, the sun shining through the spring water, I just couldn't resist but capture this image. It was quite magical. And I think I'll share the drive through the village. The last time I shared this, it was still quite summer, maybe early autumn, so it looks very different with the heavy snowfall. And this church here actually is no longer a church. It was a private residence for a while, and now it is an art gallery. And though we have a large town hall, this is another little small town building on the left. And then, of course, the Daniel Webster Inn, which is an old inn and a restaurant. It's been here for years. It has the stocks out front to remind us of our Puritan heritage. It was a cold, crisp, bright day, and houses are interspersed with businesses. This little red building is a wonderful business I want to take you to, and this is the Brown Jug, another place that sells wonderful imported cheeses and amazing wine selection, and they make a lovely cappuccino. And some other shops, which we actually walked by this summer when we went to the church charity shop. And down Jarvis, which is a mix of houses and businesses. Another church turned business. And this is actually, after this house here, is our second tea house. Our town has 2 tea rooms actually. And then up to the light, and on the left, is our good old sandwich antique shop, which I've taken you to a few times. And I will go there again, but actually, I think I want to take us to another antique shop today. Oh, and there you can see, looking past the salt marshes, back towards the village where we just came. Well, here we are past the old Christmas tree shop I took you to at Christmas time, and heading over one of the 2 bridges that separates the island bit of Cape Cod from the mainland bit of Cape Cod, across the canal, which is actually man-made, but is a saltwater throughway where big ships can get through, so we drive over the bridge. Now, this plan had been to take you to a fun antique shop off Cape. However, as I arrived there, it turned out that they were closed and will not be open again until March. But as I had taken footage of the trip over the bridge and through some of the drive, I thought, why not on a cold, crisp February day? Why not have a nice New England drive? Now, this bit of the road here is after you're off Cape and you're driving along the canal upon which we just drove over with the bridge. And this is kind of lovely because the trees and the sides of the roads were covered in snow. But here you can see this is the Cape Cod Canal to the left. So we are now on the mainland side, and on the other side, which is where we just drove from the village and over the Sagamore Bridge, is Cape Cod Island side. And as we were here, I figured we might as well share the drive through another little bit. Just seeing the sea and the harbor and various houses. It just was a nice, cold, crisp New England day. And I thought, soon we'll have warm weather and spring, and why not enjoy the snow while we have it? So through another village, rimmed by the sea in a saltwater harbor. The docks, where the boats come in, and a new little ice cream shop which just opened, now covered in snow. and some town buildings on the shore, and the quintessential New England summer house up on the town square. Then home again, jiggity-jig, with a sharp crunch of the snow as the sun was setting. I had to get this footage because through the short melt of the afternoon, beautiful ice crystals were made, and it was as if my old nemesis, Bittersweet, was in her evening jewels of diamonds, or nature had thought fit to make me a chandelier. But the sun on the water and through the ice was just magical. It's why I never tire of the same view. It's ever-changing, yet comfortably, always familiar. Another snowy day this week, and I can't help but want to think about spring. So let's use up those old daffs and get out some wildflower seeds and see what we can plant to think about spring. Well, last week we planted some daffodils inside with some summer perennials to enjoy those until spring begins. So this week I'm going to be doing something similar just to use up the rest of my daffodils, and I'm going to be using some woodland mix wildflowers. I've done this in the past. It's kind of fun. I'll start wildflower mixes. You can often get them at big box stores, things like this. These are actually things left over from various UK trips. They're meant to be planted outdoors, and then they make meadows, or this one's a woodland, so it's more shade friendly. But what I found is fun and interesting is you can start them early inside in containers. And it doesn't have to be something fancy like this. It can just be, sometimes I just do them in long plastic ones. And then by early summer, I just lift out that whole thing, and it's like a little sod of wildflowers, and then I can just kind of tuck it here and there. And of course, because it is a wildflower mix, it flowers the first and second season, and some are perennial, some are biennial, so they drop seeds and make more. So it's a fun way to enjoy them indoors in the cold, and then also get some year-round interest once you are outside. Okay, so again, I have some topsoil in there already mixed with some of my Espoma fertilizer, and I'm still going to use seed starting mix for the top. So I'm going to put a little bit in on top of the topsoil, and then I'm going to lay the rest of my bulbs. And obviously, it's pretty easy when you force them in the garage to become cold. They start getting their greens. So this way I can really control where it's going to come up. So I'm going to just place these evenly. Or you can make it, when I plant outdoors, I plant more sporadically. I toss them and plant them. But when I plant them in pots, I like them to be more orderly. I'm not sure why. And then I'm just covering up, even the green that's already showing, I'm covering that up with soil seed starting mix, which just is a light soil with vermiculite in. You can also make your own with ground up leaf mold and peat moss, things like that. And then give it a good little thing like that. And then I take the wildflower mix. And again, I'm excited about this one. This one's actually, when this is done this summer, I'll plant it out in our woodland because I want to slowly start adding more wildflowers and cultivated flowers into our woodland as well. And it does say here some will not flower the first year, which is normal for many wild perennials. So I'm just going to take them, and they are, because this is meant to be scattered randomly, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I love that English seeds often come double packed, both in the sealed metal and then in paper, where when we buy these statewide, it's almost always just loose seeds in here. I'm not sure what the difference, why it is that way, but here, let me show you what they look like. You can see it's a mixture of things. Now, I did notice on this one, it does not say the species specific, so it'll be a surprise. Or I could probably look it up on their website. So I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top, like that. And then I'm going to just add a tiny, tiny bit more of this. Not much, because it's a wildflower. It would be naturally just broadcasted by wind or ate up by birds. And then I'm going to take gravel from our gravel drive. Normally I keep some in gravel terrace. Normally I keep some in our in a little bowl. I just forgot to bring it out here. And then I'm just putting gravel. You could use aquarium gravel. You could use grit that you use specifically for planting. But I'm just doing gravel just because I think it'll be pretty. It'll help keep moisture in, but not so much so that it will cause any kind of leaf rot or seed rot. So now right now it doesn't look like much, but I'm going to put it in the window where I have my sea view. So in the morning I can watch my current perennial planter I made last week slowly get its daffodils growing, and then when these start perking up I'll be excited. And if I really want to give it a little bit more of an interest, I'll probably put maybe a couple of houseplants on either side just to give me the hope of summer. So, but that's what I planted for this week to get hopeful for spring. So hopefully we'll have a big wedge shape of daffs and wildflowers, and I can just lift that right out, find a spot in our woodland, plop it down, and then the daffs and the wildflowers can repopulate themselves where I place them. All right, that's this week's planting. Let's get on with the rest of the video. So let's bring in our newly planted planter, and here you can see on the round table last week's planter of the heuchera and the dusty millers. So I'm just going to clear a spot off here with my little mermaid. And this particular window here, these windows are from the 50s and they need to be replaced, but this one has the seal is broken, so the view is a little bit muted, so I think that's the perfect place to place it. And then in the morning I sit on the sofa opposite here and I can see the sunrise, and then as this planter begins to fill with daffs and with English wildflowers, I can dream of spring. So another hopeful, happy way to think about spring and summer whilst the snow is still outside. If you recall from last week's vlog, we sketched the darling quail chicks in the teacup. So this week I thought I wanted to give a character to hold the cup of quail chicks. So let's get started with that. Now, as I usually begin, I just start making some shapes and forms because I know I want to have a figure holding the cup. So I just kind of roughed out where the sketch will be where the cup is there. However, I've already sketched the cup previously, so I simply open up that layer and I slide over the sketch I made last week. As you can see here, the different layer, I shut that off. And then I can go back to the new layer where I'm sketching rough the character in pencil to hold the cup. And of course I will make over the cup again, but having had it sketched already last week, it's silly to not bring it in. Now you can see I'm on to a third layer of sketching, so I shut off the cup, and then I can shut off the rough sketch behind, and then on top of that I'm working on the sketch that is the next layer, or the more detailed, where I take the basic shapes of balls and shapes and things to make it into a figure. And here you can see it's more of an outline. And then I just start roughing in how I want the character to be. And again, this is the advantage of having multiple layers in digital artwork. So now you see I have more layers. So now if I shut that off, you can see the outer layer where I'm adding more detail, and see shutting off the other layers of the really rough sketch. As opposed to having to erase it, I can just shut those layers off, and now I have a sort of outlined penciled bit that I can now play with my pastel and chalky pastels. So at this point I like to just really start playing with color and form, and then I'll end up with a finished sketch that will eventually become either a watercolor or probably a digital oil. So here I'm just roughing in and playing with texture and trying to build up the character to make her more three-dimensional. And at this point too, I'm often thinking about how do I want the background to be, or what do I want this character to do? And sometimes the character often comes up with a story, or some kind of idea will come up in my head. Of all my characters kind of have a little bit of a storyline. It's just kind of how I work. So then as I keep building up layers here like this, again working on 2 or 3 layers over top of the pencil layer, and then having shut off the previous layers where I had done the rough sketching. And then just playing around with some background color to kind of decide how I want to set it off. Oh, I wanted to show this. Someone in a comment had asked how I do mixing of colors, so I wanted to have this open so you can see on the right side here is the palette that you can use for mixing, and it works just as if you were doing a real palette with oils or anything. You take the colors you want from the top or the bottom, or you can sample from the triangle, and then you mix those those colors together. Each brush is either an eyedropper or a brush. However, when I do this is how I work to mix palette colors for doing pastels and watercolors. But when I do my final digital oil, I actually open a second separate document, and that becomes my palette, and I actually mix my colors on there. I just find I have more control over it then. So then here we are, just kind of playing with the different background colors, and now here's the final sketch. And I think that at this stage I rather like it. Now this could be in and of itself a standalone painting because it still has a quality, a very painterly quality. And based on how people respond to this, if someone liked this as a painting in and of itself, I would happily make it into a print or put it on things. But the ultimate goal for this will be to have its final iteration as an oil painting, or possibly as a outlined ink and watercolor painting for the final piece. We'll see. So I like how it's coming out so far, and I hope you like how I've moved from just an idea of playing with my chicks one day in the teacup, then thinking I wish I had a character to hold this teacup, to kind of stylizing that idea and building it up with pastels and chalk, and this is where we are now. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's drawing. Now let's end out this video. Maybe let's have a look at how the quail are actually doing in size. Quail chicks grow so quickly. Here they are, not even 2 weeks old, and already their wings are completely feathered in, and they're even getting little pin feathers on their breasts. I thought this little one looked a bit like a robin, but I probably have spring on the mind. But now, before they looked like chicks, they could have been chicken chicks or anything like that, but now they definitely have the look of quail. And Una still doesn't give any care for them at all. She doesn't even pay attention to them. So I'm not sure. They'll probably end up with the other quail. All right, let's finish out today's video. Well, thank you for joining me for this week's video. Hope you enjoyed the weather, the sketching, planting seeds, hopeful for spring, and it was good to use up the rest of those dafts. And I was actually thinking for the sketch with the figure that I added to the woman with the quail chicks in the cup. Wouldn't it be fun maybe if we did a little sketch in the distance, maybe of one of the chateaus that we love, another chateau vlog that we like to watch? It might be fun to put just a glimmer of that in the background. So let me know if you think that's a good idea or silly, and if so, put it in the comments. Well, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. I'll see you in the comments and in the chats, and for my patrons, I'll see you in the village every day. All right, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. And remember, stay creative. Cheers.